2SM.
Talk, music, news, lifestyle.
Sydney Moves with 2SM.
A while since I caught up with my next guest. Always good to speak to him, because he certainly knows all about money matters. And he and his life partner, not just his business partner, they've put together their new 30-day challenge. It's the much-anticipated second book, the 30-Day Challenge. Supporting interactive online program goes with it. In a world first, the 30-Day Challenge combines general financial advice with everyday life, helping families try and save $30,000 a year by addressing everything from streamlining their weekly grocery shopping to making the most of their personal insurances and superannuation retirement savings. Now, I want to talk to him about superannuation and other things, but first of all, always a delight, as I say, to catch up. Financial advisor Wilson Luna. Good evening, Wilson. How are you?
Good evening, Graham. Thanks for having us on, mate. It's always great to talk to you, mate.
Have you got a pocket full of money at the moment?
No, not really.
Why not?
No, I'm too busy writing these things at the moment, mate.
You're supposed to be saving.
I know. Well, that's what we're trying to put across at the moment, anyway.
Now, I mentioned I want to talk about superannuation. The only reason is we often get calls from people who talk about superannuation, and you're probably the same. We've all had umpteen jobs over the years, and you have a little here and a little there, and people lose track of, where super accounts are, and they're losing a lot of it in fees and charges. And I say to people, you've got to treat superannuation as part of your wages. You know, people would be straight to the pay office if they were down a few dollars or down a lot of dollars in their pay. Well, super's the same, isn't it? We've got to treat it as not money we spend today, but money we spend, hopefully, post-work life. Awesome
point, mate. And I think your analogy there about, if someone short-paid us in our day-to-day work, or accidentally short-changed us by $10, would run down to the pay office, or would be on the phone to someone to help us. But sometimes nobody's observing the amount of there's literally hundreds and thousands of dollars that are getting lost yearly just on fees and charges of people that don't even know where their super is. So yeah, it's something to get across, particularly with the fact that a lot of this super money is concessionally taxed over the long term, which means that over the years, if it's cleverly used and you monitor, I suppose, where every cent is going and making sure that you pay as least fees as you can over that period, it's quickly becoming the biggest capital item that most retirees have long term. Once upon a time, it used to be the family home. Over the next 10 to 15 years, it will by far surpass that. And unfortunately, some people that will be retiring in those times will realize how important it was to I suppose, keep a close transparency on not only whether they're in the right investments, but also, like you mentioned, whether the fees are getting charged, and lastly, whether you've got it in various places, and one of those places might not be earning the type of return that ideally you should be aiming to earn.
And another thing I think people should be aware of is that it's not just a case of your super being parked somewhere by the boss. One, you can dictate where the boss parks it. You can nominate the super fund you go to, and also you can nominate to the super fund which way you want them to invest your money.
Oh, yeah, yes, and yes, more yes, because it's one of the biggest, I suppose, gripes that I have with a lot of super funds out there. There's what's called, when generally speaking, when you get a brand new job, there's what you call the default fund. Mm-hmm. And a majority of people will start off, and what larger superannuation funds have is what's called the default fund, where if the member doesn't nominate where he wants to put the money, it falls directly into a pot of money, which is a default fund. Generally, that default fund is a balanced fund. So it has certain portions in shares, certain portions in fixed interest, certain portions in property. But it's not specific, or it's not tailored to where you want to have it. So it's so important, as you just said, to, number one, find out how it's been invested. Number two, work out whether it suits your particular circumstances to invest it in that way, or whether you're happy to invest it in that way. Because there's nothing worse, particularly with this last global financial crisis. What we had was there was a lot of individuals saying, I didn't know I was that exposed to the crisis until I looked at my super account when the statement came in. And that's all about doing what you're saying, which is take control of it and make sure that if you are in one of these default funds, you're comfortable with that, because it's your money. It's not. There's this common belief in our population where, the super fund decides where to put your money if you've never really treated it as your own personal money. And that couldn't be further from the truth. It's your money. You decide where every single cent gets allocated.
And also, can people stop panicking when shares go down, as they do? It doesn't mean you've lost money, you know. In fact, the average person who saw the so-called global crunch are much better off today than they were 15 months ago.
Look, you know, I always say, you know, the share market's driven by two factors, you know, greed and fear, and
yes.
and you know, the most unfortunate part is that fear is such a, you know, there's actually massive research to suggest that people prefer, by far, they don't notice half as much when they make money as the fear that they experience when they lose some money.
Yes. Yeah.
Which, from a psychological standpoint, it shows the tendency of people to be selling when they should least sell, and buying when they should least buy.
Yep.
And you know, when situations like that happen, and this is what I tell even our personal clients, it's when things, you know, and I call it, you know, when there's blood on the streets. That's the time when either A, you should be talking to someone, or B, when you should be really holding your wits, because if somebody's selling, there's always somebody buying, and generally the person that's buying is an institution, because they have no emotions to the situation. Usually the person selling is the person that's busted their butt to raise that capital in that fund.
So I reckon Rupert Murdoch, and I admire Rupert so much. He's the smartest guy in the world, because you know, he's put his heart and soul into building up News Corporation. Yet he'll sell his personal stock, or large chunks of his personal stock, when the shares are you know, sitting right up there top shelf. Sell out then, and then buy back in when the shares drop again, and that's the way to do it, isn't it?
Oh, look, Studies show, and you know, we do a lot, I suppose, with analysing, you know, the habits of, I suppose, people that are successful in the investment environment compared to those that aren't. And one of the biggest defining factors is that people that generally are successful in it are the ones that can detach themselves from the emotions of money.
Yep.
And the ones that can look at it purely on this basis. Is that particular asset overpriced or underpriced? If it's underpriced, I'm generally buying it.
Yep.
And if it's overpriced, I don't care how much love I have for that asset or that share, I'm selling it because I'm selling it above value. And much easier said than done, but it's that ability to learn those disciplines that over the long period of time makes the big difference.
Oh, very
in our
much
retirement. So. Yeah.
Now, you've got this 4-week plan of saving money.
Yep.
Let's start with week 1, where you talk about reducing the cost of essential items in the household, like food, transport, utilities, and eating out. Now, eating out is always a false economy. It's never going to be cheaper than eating at home, is it? And food, much as we all know, we can find food at a cheaper price at another market or another shop or whatever. We tend to become creatures of habit, and if we've gone to XYZ arcade or shopping complex for a while, we find ourselves automatically going back there the following Saturday, don't we?
Oh, we're creatures of habit, as you've just mentioned. And look, just the main I suppose, background to the writing of this book was we didn't want to aim at writing a book for as Anna, my wife, likes to say, it's not a cheapskate book where you're just going to save money. The whole motto behind the book is you need to be able to save money, but at the same time preserve the quality of life. If you can't preserve the quality of life, chances are it's like a yo-yo diet. You'll do it today, but you'll run back to the old habits tomorrow.
Or you'll be bluing tomorrow at home, won't you? That's the reality. We're having a massive stand-up blue.
Exactly.
Yep.
And it's like telling the wife not to buy shoes once a month or whenever they decide to. It's something that'll hold for a little while, but won't hold forever.
Only once a month for Gail, is it? Like heck.
Well, I have to say the nice things. Now, look, the truth of it is, we looked at it and we said, okay, what can we just tweak to make a difference? And when we started, we said we've got to make it over 30 days because people want quick results.
Yep.
Because there's nothing like. This is the amazing thing. There's nothing like getting quick, effective results to motivate you to continue. So we said, we originally thought that these 30 days would probably save somewhere in the vicinity of $10,000.
Right.
When we started doing it and we grabbed an average family, husband, wife, 2 kids and a dog, believe it or not, and we worked out every single way that you could tweak things without changing the quality of experience. And the first week straight away we go over all the stuff that we do at home, like all the food that we throw away. So you do an audit on your cupboards and your fridge. And you say, great, if it's about to expire, put it in the next 7-day meal plan.
Right.
And pre-plan your meals. That way it won't expire and you won't have to throw it. The rest of the food, at least you'll do a stock take and you work out what you need to buy to go shopping in order to make those meals. Once you've worked that out, get out the coupons and go, where am I going to go? Because usually shopping centres, particularly your bigger stores like your Coles, your Woolworths, etc., they have what everyone knows as loss leaders. Mm-hmm. So if those loss leaders are incorporated within your eating plan, go to those shops. But when you do, there's a couple of rules even going shopping. Number one, try and keep the kids at home. I know this from personal experience, where I will walk out and I feel too guilty not to buy him what he wants.
What, a couple of chocolate bars and a few tubs of ice cream?
Yeah. Go to the shops and buy exactly what you need because you've already pre-planned it. Also, try and go on a full stomach. Try and have dinner before you go or try and have lunch before you go.
Is that so you won't stop and have a coffee and a vanilla slice on the way in?
Perfect. Yeah. Or you're buying what you should be buying and then suddenly you start roving your eyes right around it because the shopping centres play this great marketing game of knowing you're going to go in this for this particularly priced good, but all the stuff around it is so tempting that they put their probability on it that you're going to be buying that and make up the difference in the pricing anyway.
Yeah.
When you go shopping, try and stay away from what we call the red zones, which is right at the final aisle. They know you're going to be standing there for a while. Anything in there, magazines, chocolates, anything else in that zone is severely margined up. And what you save inside, you would generally lose on those outer aisles, and that's a big part of week one, where it's let's learn how to shop firstly at home, and then let's learn how to shop outside of home.
Yeah, I must admit, I was watching a lady on the weekend, and she amazed me because I know you can't tell by looking at somebody, but she looked as though she'd be really honest and straightforward. And she'd gone and bought some cold meat, and then she put into a plastic bag some loose salad, these lettuce leaves you can buy now loose. And then she walked around while filling up her trolley, but eating the meat and eating the salad. Now, I'm sure she didn't pay for that when she got back to the cash register.
Jesus.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Although I must admit, Gail hates grocery shopping. I find it relaxing because you're away from phones and things, and I do go up every aisle, much to her annoyance. I said, no, there might be something we need, so is that what you do? You leave the one in the family who's a bit reckless.
Bingo. I'd keep you at home, Graham.
Right, fair enough. Fair enough.
And mind you, I'm just like you are. I was the one that used to go, because the great thing at what we did this challenge 3 times before we finally finalised it, because we needed to know that it was getting the results. And part of it was a lot of the bad habits were mine, where I would sometimes go shopping or stop at the petrol stations on the way home. You forgot something, and you're paying 3 times more for the loaf of bread and the milk because it's just convenient versus being clever.
And you convince yourself it must be fresh because it's probably been sitting at the supermarket for 2 days, whereas at the service station they would have got it in this morning.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So a lot of those things, that's a big part of it as well. Pick who in the family has the right characteristics or the right disciplines to undertake certain tasks.
Week 2 about maximising the resources we already possess and learning how to save more by living smarter, by getting the best deal on your housing cost, understanding how to balance priority spending and non-essential spending. You tell us, in layman's language, what does that mean?
Layman's language, the simple things. The simple things, your electricity, turning it off at the switch, your washing, instead of 4 loads, wait till it begins to, I suppose, stock up and try and do it in half as many loads.
Well, that's where blokes are better.
Yes.
Blokes are better because we will do the washing fairly effectively, whereas women will want to sort everything. Oh, that's a colour, that's a plain, that's whites, we just put it all in.
I've never seen so much sorting as when I went through this process, so I agree with you.
Yeah.
Anna, sorts it out, in 40 different buckets, and I say, why can't we mix all this stuff up?
Yeah, it's frustrating. And I bet Anna says, it's going to run. You say, look, I've been wearing that shirt for about the last 8 months. It's not going to run. It's been washed every week, and it's comfortable. It'll go in with your white petticoat or your white knickers or whatever. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. It's things like that. It's the TV. It's the keeping the lights on. It's the washing in off-peak time. It's interesting how many people will wash their clothes during the day when the electricity companies know that's when it will run.
Yeah.
Instead of washing it overnight, which it doesn't make a difference. The washing machine's the one that washes the clothes anyway.
Yeah.
Air drying, which is a novel approach in today's day. And doing a bit more of that and working out the savings on overall things like that, it can really add up. Then we go into his, hers, and the dogs. Everything from even the dog's food, where sometimes you can go to the butcher, they throw away a lot of the meat.
That's right.
And you just ask them for pieces, and basically, you're saving yourself on some of these overpriced brands that are pretty much giving you the same thing or more preservatives for the dog anyway.
A butcher will mostly give you a couple of big bones and some offcuts.
Oh, yeah. The bigger items we found. Going through it were there's some reasonably big ones. Obviously, the eating out's a massive one.
Yep.
Because we've got this saying that says when your emotions are high, your intelligence is very low.
Yep.
And when we go out to eat, we're in a very high emotional time, and it's all about. Hang on a minute, people love going out to eat, so that you should not do it. But if you want to save some dollars on it, there might be some really simple things you can do, like maybe when you go out there, the biggest portion of profitability for the restaurants is generally in the desserts area, the coffees and the cakes. So maybe enjoy the ambience of the main meal, but maybe, have already the cake and the coffee at home. And you'll pretty much either A or B, you'll either be able to go out more often at the same price, or B, you'll just save a lot of money every time you go out to eat. Secondly, try and take your alcohol. I know myself, I was always a sucker for the wine list.
Yes.
And my wife one day, I remember we were going there, she said, look, we were walking through, and she said, okay, well, let's buy the wine, let's see compared to what, and I think it was something like $12 cheaper than the identical wine in there. So I'm having the identical quality wine and saving a fortune, and there's actually no difference in the actual experience.
But it adds up when you want a couple of cognacs after you've had your wine.
That's the only problem. Actually, with drinks, look, I'll tell you a really interesting one. With drinks, if you go out, one of the tips, and this actually came from Anna, was if you like your alcohol, particularly if you're a wine buff, or even if you're a beer buff, have your first one. It's okay to have the boutique drink,
right?
But the second and third drink, generally your palate hasn't got the same taste to it, or can't, unless you've got a very, very sophisticated palate.
Yeah.
The second and third one, you wouldn't tell the difference between a house alternative as what you would for the first one. And I think we calculated that you could save something like $2,500 to $3,000 a year if you generally go out twice a month.
Right. Yeah.
And you just downgraded the second and third drink to a house wine or a house beer.
Yeah. Good advice. Now, we're up to week 3. I've got to take a commercial break. We'll come back on week 3. Don't you go away. Our guest tonight, Wilson Luna, financial advisor. We're talking about how you can save money at home in your shopping and insurances and household costs, etc. If you've got a question, now's a good time. Last time we spoke to Wilson, we got a stack of calls afterwards. Now's the time. Jump on the phone. He'll happily answer your queries. Our number 13 12 69. Talk tonight. Talk tonight around the Super Radio Network. Our number 13 12 69. Our guest tonight, financial advisor Wilson Luna, who's got a great new book out called The 30-Day Challenge. Now, we're up to week 3. Now, I've seen some people open their wallets and you get the idea that they've got a pack of playing cards in there, but they're really just credit cards. Some people just seem to be, I think, paying off one credit card with another. Now, that has to be fairly dumb, doesn't it?
It's an addiction that some people unfortunately get into the cycle of. Mm-hmm. With the end result being, there was a common, in the peak of the credit boom, there was a belief because banks wanted your business so heavily, they would provide interest-free terms in order to transfer funds, as everyone's aware of.
Right, yeah.
So some people that had or certain individuals that had a lot of debt would keep transferring them across and across, believing that there was no end to the cycle. Unfortunately, there's what we call a credit report, and at some stage it catches up to you, and when you go for a transfer, the new credit card provider will realise that it's been done on various occasions,
right,
and will stop allowing it. Unfortunately, if that happens, you're stuck with a big balance, probably at a penalty rate scenario.
Right.
From that provider. It's something that needs to be looked at very carefully for whatever reason that has happened. But it's something that can be controlled, and the amount that one can save by getting that under control. And like you said, it's unfortunately it's become part of our culture and most Western cultures.
Is it a false economy, these people who say, I put everything on the card because I get frequent flyer points? Because you hear others who say you need about 8 billion frequent flyer points to fly from Sydney to Newcastle.
I think that's a bit no, I'm joking. I totally agree with you. Yeah, look, if you work out the interest rate or just the cost of having a credit card,
yeah,
there's very few individuals that spend the quantity or the sheer size of money per month and pay it off within the period that actually get the value out of those frequent flyers that make it worthwhile coming up with that way of thinking.
Now, I was going to say, you mentioned paying it off in the right time. That's another trap. We'll talk about that in a sec, but I've got Paul on the line who wants to speak to you. Hello, Paul.
G'day, Wilson, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, how are you going?
Good, Paul. How are you, mate?
Not too bad. Got a little question, if I could, please. My wife and I had a strategy where we went through a financial advisor, and it seemed to be the plan through the last whatever years where credit was very, very free, where you borrowed against the value of your home and invested in the share market. Now, thankfully, with the global financial crisis, I actually, in a way, saw it coming, and when it got near our what I would term capital, I actually cashed it in. Now, I've got maybe it's more than one question actually, but is that still a recommended financial strategy?
Okay, to answer your question. It all comes down to one factor, and that's your particular circumstances. And when I say your particular circumstances, there are various aspects to that. Aspect number one, your risk tolerance. And you mentioned that, you saw the capital going down and suddenly you made a decision. You said, hang on, I kind of need to bail here. Yeah? Or I need to move my capital out of it. So that's one of the big determinants on whether certain strategies are applicable to certain individuals, what risk tolerance they have, because asset classes like shares are very volatile in their inherent nature. So the short answer of it is it depends on a lot of individual, I suppose, your own personal circumstances in terms of your assets, your liabilities, what goals you want to achieve, how much risk you're willing to take in order to achieve those goals. And it's vitally important that the advisor that you saw or the advisor that you see takes absolutely every part of your circumstances into account when they suggest a investment strategy for you. So a blanket approach to whether it's time to invest in shares or not is never advisable. And anybody that does create those blanket type approaches is pretty crazy, because every individual is different and copes with.
If I could, the guy that we saw, I live in Brisbane, was very, very good.
Good.
And we actually bought an investment property.
Good.
And look, my wife and I, we worked very, very hard. And the thing is, I listened to what was going on the radio before, and that's us to a T. Like, we never pay interest on the credit card, we never do this, we never do that, and we're one of those, and I'm the anal guy that goes around turning everything off at the wall.
I like you already.
Has to be one, Paul.
I'm sorry, guys. But the thing is with the investment property, this is my last question, if I may. I don't want to take up too much of your time. We luckily would have gained 50% equity in the property with the rise in the valuation. The thing is, it's in a blue-collar area in North Brisbane, for want of a better word, and the thing I'm looking at is I don't know whether or not that the property has reached a level where there's not going to be too much more capital gain. Okay. And I'm 50, my wife's 50 next month, and the question running through our mind is a case of, okay, do we sell it, and then we could turn around and, okay, we make a nice little profit, and then do I put that in the super? Because it scared the daylights out of me with a couple of the investments that I had, with how much they went down.
Yeah. And let me give you another circumstance that, unfortunately, in Australia, we're not used to hearing the potential that, we've for the last 100 years, property has always generally moved in the upward direction. So we're used to, I suppose, having a situation where property always has appreciated. If we look around the world at the moment, and by no means am I making this as an assumption of what will happen, but there are circumstances, particularly when world markets change to a certain degree, or there's a flow of funds in unusual manners in different investments, where property has actually gone down. We only have to look at the States and Europe to look at that. Now, we're in a very different economy here in Australia, but days when we could put our hand on fire and say, look, their property will always go up. And I say this because I've seen a lot of property investment seminars over my life, and the general theory that underlies property with a lot of investment seminars, particularly in property, is that it's an assumption that property will always go up. And that's something that in today's climate, it can or it can't, but it's something that needs to be considered versus taking it as a sure thing.
Right.
So when you say, should I be looking at maybe selling that property, what I would suggest is, and here's where using an advisor is always a good thing, because you've got someone to bounce something off, and hopefully if they're the right advisor, which you mentioned that you like this advisor, they're the person that can help you get your emotions out of a particular investment and give you more black and white data. But nothing beats, and I even say this to my clients, nothing beats personal research. You and your wife have worked all your lives to build up this capital. If you want to know more about whether you think that particular investment may have plateaued, or there's a possibility maybe of even, it experiencing a slight withdrawal, or maybe staying at the same level for a while, that's where you need to put in that above and beyond research into the area, maybe talk to some real estate agents, maybe get on the ground floor.
Yeah.
And some people say, look, I'm not going to go and fly out to Brisbane, and that in itself, sometimes if the investment is of reasonable size, now I don't know how much the property's worth, but I would probably say, definitely be over a couple of $100,000.
Yeah.
if you work out the cost of making a decision, or maybe flying out there and really getting on the ground level and getting that information for yourself, there's no better investment you can make.
Right now, it's almost positively geared.
Okay.
All righty, thanks, Paul. 13 12 69 our number if you'd like to speak to Wilson Luna. 13 12 69 is our number. Oh, by the way, people in the Mayfield, Tyers Hill area, some power problems at the moment. We're on to Energy Australia, so keep your tranny on. We'll let you know what the problem is and when they hope to have the lights back on. Larry, go ahead. Wilson's listening.
Yeah, g'day. How's it going?
How you going, Larry?
Yeah, good, thanks. Look, I've got a superannuation account with AMP, Flexible Lifetime Super. Yep. And I've got a smaller account with hardly anything in it with Australian Super. Yep. And I just think the AMP one is going nowhere at the moment. I just wanted to know what you think is the best one.
It would depend on what option within the AMP Super is there. It would depend on from a circumstance perspective, what the balance and what the allocation of your asset classes within it, and what's the main purpose for that super for you, apart from, I suppose, do you want the flexibility of being able to take it from one to the other? At the end of the day, I would probably say, I'm not sure the exact balances you got, but consolidating is definitely something you should be considering. Right.
There's more fees and charges with the flexible, isn't there? Like there's financial advisors fees, things like that.
Come again? I didn't quite get that last part.
There's financial advisor fees and other fees with the AMP one, whereas the Australian Super is really low fees. Is that correct?
Yes. Oh, look, generally speaking, when Australian Super is an industry fund,
yep.
So there wouldn't be any advisor fees on that. But there's also some situations where some advisors recommend industry funds, and they charge a fee for service. Right, so I don't know what circumstance you're in you exactly are in. So
yeah.
So the best way to look at it is to sit down and work out, I suppose, fees and charges on either account, which you can call up the providers. You can call up AMP, and you should be able to call up Australian Super. But yep. Not only work that out, because everybody focuses a lot on fees, which is an important component, but there's also the other side of it, which is ask them to give you the last 3 years' performance on either fund as well.
Yeah, but it's going to be different because I've got a lot more in one than the other.
Okay.
You can work out percentage, Bud, can't
Bingo.
you?
Yeah. Work it out from a percentage basis. Right, okay.
Because, just to give you an idea, there's some circumstances that, if you're making 2-3% more on one that you're paying 0.5% more in fees, well, obviously on a net amount, that's not as high. That's probably the better option. Whilst on the other hand, if you're making pretty much the same and you're paying more fees on one, well, obviously, probably move it to the one that has the less fees.
Yeah, okay.
So, it's really doing some investigation, I suppose doing some chase up on your fees and also the returns that you're getting on them, and also look at if one of them is returning a lot higher return, work out the asset allocation, because generally speaking you will get much higher returns when you're in a lot riskier allocation of assets.
Right.
That's the general perspective. So it's never apples with apples, so it's a matter of working out, which ones are the apples, which ones are the oranges, and making sure that you're comparing them.
Yeah.
Okay, Larry?
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Larry.
All the best to you, Larry. 13 12 69 is our number tonight. Now, when we're talking about superannuation, and as you've correctly told those last two callers, we really need to look at what we expect to get from our investment or our super and work that way. But also on that week 3 of consolidating things, you look at the broad issue of insurance. Yeah. Now, don't we sometimes have people who each year just pay the premium with ABC insurance? Should we be, or XYZ or what have you, should we not be looking around year in, year out to get a better deal for the same coverage?
It's one of those areas that week 3 and in the insurance side again, that sometimes we allow complacency to substitute possible savings. Mm-hmm. Because the insurance industry and the financial services in general, there's been so much consolidation, there's been so much demand to capture market share, that in a lot of cases, and you know, not in every case, obviously sometimes you pay for what you get,
Yep.
but in a lot of cases, some providers are simply looking to win market share,
Yep.
and they don't mind doing it at a loss, at a temporary loss.
Yep. Yep.
Now, when you see that's the case, number one, make sure that you're looking to make sure that the institution that's prepared to make the temporary loss is big enough to withstand those losses in order to win market share.
Yep.
Because if it's a two-bob company and they're there, you know, buying business cheaper only to build up their market share, well, you've got to work out whether they're sustainable over the long term.
Exactly.
But if they're the right institutions, there's a few banks out there at the moment. Just to give you an idea, on another different example, on a term deposit basis, that were offering rates of up to 8% on term deposits. Now, you'd be hard-pressed to get those types of returns on just about any asset class, and they're backed by one of our large four banks. So.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I looked at some of those just recently. 8% isn't bad, is it?
Oh, yeah, you have to argue. You know,
and in some cases, you can pack it away guaranteed 8% for 5 years.
You know, yeah. So yes, and especially now with the somewhat turmoil, or the market's trying to come back to equilibrium.
Yep.
You will see some outstanding opportunities. Number one, to save money on insurances. That includes general insurances as well.
And guaranteed by the government with bank deposits.
Yeah.
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 Now talking of not so much guarantees, but going back to credit cards. Yeah. And sometimes people think, oh yeah, I'll pay it off, or I'm only a couple of days late, or I'm a day late, that's okay. The point is now we have a computerised world. You don't have the emotions of a friendly bank manager. As soon as you go over, you might go from interest-free inside, say, 30 days. You hit 31 days, and you're paying maybe 23, 24% for the entire 30 days previously, aren't you?
Oh, look, this is one area that you know, I've got a personal aggravation with, particularly when I look at credit card statements, that there's no one monitoring it from a regulatory perspective.
Yep.
That if you look at the balance that they tell you to pay, the one in the big bold letters with the big numbers, it works out at about a 3% of the balance. Now, if you only pay a 3% of a balance on something that's accruing at 15 to 20%,
you're going backwards quickly.
Doesn't without a paddle, and it aggravates the hell out of me that there's no one putting some kind of, you know, overall, I suppose, even provision there to say that they have to at least tell you what the effect of paying that rate is. Because people, you know, that they believe they're abiding with what they need to do, and indirectly they're going backwards fast.
Yeah, now we're up to week 4. Yep. I've got to take one more break. Don't you go away. Is that okay?
Yeah, mate, all good, mate.
Don't you go away. Wilson Luna's our guest tonight. He'll tell you how to save money in your budget. Also give you a web address so you can get all the information you need to. So have a pencil and paper handy. Talk tonight on 131269. Talk tonight with Graham Gilbert. We're learning how to save some of our money. And that's exactly what we're talking about. You know, it's no use thinking, I have to be Flash Harry every time I go somewhere and look as though I'm, you know, made of money. Why not save some of your own money? And that's what we're looking at with the Your Family, Your Money Challenge. And our guest tonight, Wilson Luna. Now, we're up to week 4, and it is the luxury items where we sometimes do think we're Flash Harry, Wilson.
And unfortunately, it's a cultural thing, but probably because, you know, we've been the lucky country for so many years.
Yep.
Not many people, and I mean, including myself and everybody else, you know when things are good, we believe it's going to continue staying good, and, you know, we're of the perception a lot of times that, you know, if we can, we do, instead of sometimes, you know, the old perception saying, you know, save away for a rainy day, and, you know, don't overindulge in things that sometimes aren't that necessary.
And also, you might go shopping and see the sale sign or special sign. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's a sale for you. More than likely, it's for the retailer, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a funny one. And you know, this last Christmas was a really interesting one. You know, the pre-Christmas sales, I think, were one of the most disappointing for the larger shopping centres, because everyone was actually waiting for the post-Christmas sales. And it kind of, I think, put everyone into a tailspin about when, I think the retailers were wondering when they're actually going to start selling stuff. And people waiting till after versus before, and
I'm not sure if people aren't becoming a little bit sick and tired of these so-called phony sales, and people are saying, well, if you can afford to have sales for seemingly 11 months of the year, just bring the ticket price down, and we might shop more regularly.
Look, I think one thing that I think has changed the world as we know it is the whole online world. I think it has taken off the mask of some retailers, and obviously some retailers do genuine sales.
Yeah.
But there's, like you mentioned, some of them use it as a prop to bring people in the shopping centres. The truth of it is that the transparency that the internet is today providing, in terms of what really good value is in certain areas, like clothing, like children's toys, etc., has in a way developed a platform of where retailers need to be going toward if their sales are going to start being respected in the way that they used to be once upon a time.
But I'll be honest to you, I'm frightened, and I don't do it at the moment. Yep. I'm frightened of putting banking details on the internet.
Okay.
Am I just dumb or paranoid or what in regard to that?
I think it's a change in paradigm, because I was the same way, and I have to confess I was the same way probably about 12 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the only thing that maybe changed my mind was that we did, in the writing of this book, we did a hell of a lot of research and began to really identify those sites that have the credibility behind it, that have the systems, the processes, the privacy and the security.
But you get a 6-year-old who hacks into the White House net or Fort Knox or something, and I think that's what tends to worry some of us.
Yeah. Oh, look, and it's a justified worry. It really, really is. It's a funny one. It's damn if you do, damn if you don't, because there's also the other aspect of, if I go shopping and I always think this, for whatever reason, I don't know about you, but I have this paranoia thing that after I pay with a credit card, even if I'm one-on-one, I walk away and I will check my wallet at least 2-3 times post that.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing that gives me bigger fear than thinking that accidentally I might have left it on there, someone else picked it up, and we all know how much they really check the signatures.
Yeah, exactly.
Not very much.
Yeah, you are right.
So in that regard, there's that risk factor as well. I've actually gone towards, and one of the things that we're writing in the next book that we're sort of through is, if you can, nowadays they give you the option of providing pins versus signature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that might be a smarter option.
Yeah.
We're still looking into it, but I'm sort of swaying that way.
I'm a pin boy. Now, we're coming up on news. I hate to be rude to you.
No.
The book is called Your Family, Your Money, the 30-day challenge, which is available in all good news agents.
All good bookstores.
All good bookstores.
All good news agencies. And it's even available at all Big W stores.
Right, so all good bookstores, all good news agencies, Big W stores, Your Family, Your Money, with a very handsome couple looking over the top, the 30-day challenge. And you can also go on the web, in one word, yourfamilyyourmoney.com. So yourfamilyyourmoney.com. Yourfamilyyourmoney.com. The book's the same, Your Family, Your Money, 30-day challenge. If you didn't get those details, give us a call at the station. We'll pass them on. I'd better let you go and count the money you're going to save next month.
Graham, it's always a pleasure to listen to you.
We'll talk soon. I've got to go to news. Thanks, Wilson.